Alliance. Welcome everyone to the Catch Wrestling Alliance podcast. Uh, Hopefully you're here with us live. We're live on Twitch and YouTube. So welcome to everyone watching. And also, if you're watching if you're watching this later, not watching it live, welcome. Thank you for just thank you for your support. Thank you for your views. Everything helps. Um, we have like a lot of things to talk about, but one of the main things is that we like first and foremost before we get into our topic today is one of the goals of the Catch Wrestling Alliance, besides being preserving the art of catch can wrestling, we also want to help everyone who wants to be helped to improve their grappling. So definitely we have a lot of people around the world who study with us, and just want to let people know that we're here to help. We're here to help people elevate their grappling. That's one of the things that we are, very happy to do. I've done seminars in Asia often and different parts of the United States. So um, helping you has actually always been at the core of this. And by helping you, we achieve our goal to help preserve this great art of ours, right? This wrestling style that, used to dominate the United States and the rest of the world. So, with your help, then, we can really keep real wrestling alive. All right. So actually, we have an update. I think for those of you who have been listening or keeping up with us, and you might have seen some of our short videos where we were doing some videos at UCLA campus. Well, because of the COVID outbreak, we're not going to be on campus right now. So uh, I guess you won't be seeing many more, at least for a few weeks. For probably this quarter, I think all the classes are going to be virtual. I think for grappling, they just might not even have class because of it's a little hard to like teach. If you're by yourself or whatever, it's kind of hard to teach on Zoom. But one thing that's not so hard to teach is the kickboxing stuff. So I want to pat myself on the back a little bit. I guess my kickboxing class has the most enrollment in out of all the martial arts classes at UCLA. So happy to hear that, and it just shows that people enjoy the class. But stuff like this, like Sanda, so I teach Chinese kickboxing and catch wrestling, but like this style, which is a more obscure style, is still beat out the more popular styles like Muay Thai and whatnot. I think the other style that comes close in enrollment, but like not like not as the number two, I think, is like boxing or whatever. But like our enrollment is just like way beyond anybody else. So I found that out this morning. So I just wanted to brag about that a little bit. I'm really happy because it's really great to see the students, and basically they said a lot of great things about enjoying the class, and they really like the style and stuff. It's really one of those styles that I've always said is like a great base style. So catch wrestling is a great base style that uh, you can easily add on different types of things. So one of the main thing is that that I think about is like, say, like a lot of the self defense stuff. It's really easy to add on like these other like knife fighting stuff or whatever. Having a good sanda base or a good catch wrestling base allows you to easily um, get into these other like complementary things, right? But it'd be great to have sanda base or a catch wrestling base, So, um, so we have that here at UCLA, and of course, I also teach at Fight Science MMA. I think they have so a bunch of fighters coming up. One guy's in UFC already. So we'll see what happens with Fight Science. I still teach. So basically, I'm there on Thursday nights teaching catch wrestling. I'll let you know if anything changes with that. All right. So another thing, is that so last week, for those of you who watched that live stream or listened to that podcast, we were talking about one of the greatest catch wrestlers to whoever roamed, whoever walked the earth, right? The guy who's considered Farmer Burns' teacher, so Tom Connors. We were talking about him and his book, and this week we're going to continue talking about the book, but something kind of interesting happened. So we're going to shift gears and kind of talk about this other thing that happened. But let me kind of start off or one of the reasons why I decided to like switch gears and talk about a different subject this week was um, a, a thing, right? So we released our pressure pass system online course. So that's on through our website, catchwrestlingalliance.com. We released that, and actually we have a big fan who was who was on our podcast like months ago, but it was Thiago. I have a difficult time saying his last name. It's Niemeyer. He's in Rio. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's been a black belt, for many years. He's also an anthropologist, so he really likes kind of studying like the evolution and the kind of like the development of different martial arts. And he's really fascinated by catch wrestling. He's trained with some of the biggest names in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, of course, in Brazil. And he loves catch wrestling. He loves what we do, and he has he did the course, right? Our latest pressure pass course, and he's trying to implement a lot of these things. And so he sent a video that we shared on our social media. It's the short that we released probably earlier this week, where it says just two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. Because it's two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts in Brazil doing the technique they learned from our course. And it got a couple of comments from different people, which I think is really kind of interesting. So, but they basically said the same thing. So two different people commented about like, oh, there's so much back exposure on this guard pass that he was doing. But and I think we're gonna have Thiago talk about this on our podcast coming up, possibly even next week. But within the next few weeks, we'll say that to not like get you expecting next week. But anyway, what we were calling is kind of like the invisible techniques, right? And pinning is actually one of these kind of invisible techniques for wrestling and no gi grappling, no gi jujitsu, and even gi jujitsu, right? So a lot of people just in general don't understand this, don't understand this idea, and don't really implement these great techniques or these ways of controlling your opponent. And you can set up all kinds of submissions using pins and stuff. So Thiago was doing that, but then I think kind of like to the untrained eye, or at least to the person who's kind of, I would say like I would describe it as like someone who has like this mainstream grappling mindset. They're like, oh, too much back exposure. But if you're even if you're doing amateur wrestling, it's preferable to give your back to the person. If you're doing catch wrestling, it's also more preferable to give your back to the person, because if you're chest to chest, that means one of you guys is got their shoulders on the mat, right? So so it's preferable to give your back, and so giving your back isn't really as dangerous as the people with the mainstream grappling mindset might believe. And that'll probably be another video series that we'll do on our website, because it's like people got to break out of that mindset. But then that leads to what happened this week. So on the Flo Grappling podcast, and I guess it's kind of funny, I talked about Craig Jones a few weeks ago, because he was talking about, he was joking around about chokes and whatnot, but he was actually describing the way a lot of people back in the day, in the heyday of catch wrestling, he was describing the way they looked at chokes and how it wasn't considered something that really shows control or dominance and whatnot. So, but anyway, so now Craig Jones is talking again, and so we're talking about it because going back to this whole idea of these invisible techniques and pinning and whatnot, where the pin can it might look like maybe you're in the case of the video that we shared with Chiago, it might look like maybe there's potential back exposure stuff, but really when you're using the pinning principles properly, you're really not in danger, and they're probably not even going to be able to take your back or whatever. But by I guess we'll transition. I try to transition, but it's not quite working out. But what happened was then on the podcast, on the Flo Grappling podcast, Craig Jones went on and pledged to not pull guard, right, ever again, right? So he might just be messing around or whatever, or to be sensational. But it was pretty interesting because then what does that mean? I mean, that means he's going to have a little bit more potential back exposure, and he's not worried. I'm not worried. And actually, if you if you don't pull guard, you can set up a lot of great counter. So let's go and show you the video. So this was on their social media, on the Flo Grappling social media. It's like, I think it's like 40 seconds long. So go ahead and enjoy this, and then we'll talk about it once it's over.
I'm making this promise from this day forward. I will never pull guard again.
Whoa.
What?
Win or lose, even if I get my ass slammed into the ground, I will not pull guard again.
Whoa.
I'm not buying an ADCC, Craig?
Never, even if you're 12 minutes in and you're tired and it's not working, you're never going to pull guard. Or you mean you're never going to pull guard
I'll take
first?
a DQ over a guard pull. If I'm tired, we're getting a DQ.
You just walk off the mat.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike? What do you think about that, Mikey?
Mikey, are you ever going to pull guard again?
Shit, I need to pull guard. Man, so ADCC, you're fighting someone like a really high-level wrestler. You're not going to pull guard, Craig.
My hope is that they get tired taking me down, and that's when I strike.
Okay?
Okay, so he might be joking or whatever, but the thing is, like, when he jokes around, he actually kind of says stuff that's more of like the perspective of back in the day, like these catch wrestlers too, where again, if he said he says he wants them to be tired, or he wants the opponent to tire themselves out trying to take him down. That's actually a really great strategy. Then if they make us if they shoot in for a double and you totally counter easily. And I think he's also training with some high level NCAA wrestlers too, at his school now, or at his gym now. So at least he's seeing a lot of the amateur wrestlers, or at least amateur wrestling attack strategies. So that means he would be able to beat, or at least counter, a lot of the mainstream techniques that you would see from people who did like high school or collegiate wrestling. And there's so many, they leave themselves open to a lot of submissions. So he's probably just practicing all that. And that's one of the things that I wish more people would understand, because when you see these comments of like people with that kind of like this mainstream grappling understanding, then it's kind of disappointing. Like, you don't want to describe everything to them, or you can't explain anything to them, because it's almost like cultish in a way, where it's like, because I'm not like promoting the mainstream thing, then they're not listening unless it's like a guru like John Danaher saying the same thing that I say. And I think the video clip is pretty interesting though too, because you have two really popular jiu-jitsu practitioners. So one is Craig talking about not pulling guard and kind of waiting for the opponent to tire themselves out, and then you can counter their takedown attempt. Then you have Muzumeki, where he's talking about he has to pull guard, right? So even against a high level grappler, he's going to, basically he'll probably sit down. I've seen a few of his matches. Yeah, but I don't follow him that much, right? Compared to Craig Jones, I've seen a bunch of many more, right? And so yeah, there's all these different ways. So even if you do get taken down to counter, but the main thing is that, say if you refuse to pull guard, I believe you actually have many more options at your disposal, many more techniques that you can do, many more counters, because you're not limiting yourself by being on the ground, right? If you're on top, then you can, or even if you counter a takedown, then you can kind of set up a lot of different counter attacks. Same thing. Of course, it's not. I don't think it's actually the same thing as if you were to sit down. I believe if you're standing, you have so many more options. So will anybody pledge to not pull guard? Personally, I do no-gi jiu-jitsu, weekly several times, and I don't do it. I mean, it seems to work out just fine for me. Of course, in my catch wrestling classes, you'll get some people coming from the jiu-jitsu class, because it's it's at the MMA studio, so all different backgrounds are welcome to attend. But you'll see some people, like with that mainstream mindset, or who've only done jiu-jitsu, so they're thinking of that whole, you always got to face them kind of idea. So doesn't mean it's always a failure when they do stuff like that, but it's limiting, I think, ultimately. That's just my opinion. You can have your opinion. That's totally fine. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and let me know. We'll be happy to respond. It's kind of like an unusual time to have our chat, to have our live stream. So I think the usual people aren't here, but feel free to comment or whatever. I'd like to hear your point of view. You're not gonna persuade me. No, just kidding. Whatever. But I just thought there's something interesting, and I'm glad that instance happened. It's probably not going to change the mainstream grappling, but at least we're having these ideas thrown out there, because what Craig Jones says is totally viable, and whether he's joking or not, it's not pulling guard is totally fine, and he might be more successful now, because there's I think one of his last matches, I think yeah, I think it went full time. I don't think about the submission. I think he's the one, just he was like the bigger guy. But I think it was still kind of like barely. He wasn't really, yeah. I think it was against one of the Ruotolos, I believe. But anyway, yeah, it went full time. So yeah, maybe he's trying to change some other things up instead of doing the mainstream stuff. Right. All right. Yeah. So again, if anybody has any thoughts, feel free to write them in the chat. Also, if there's any other things that you're interested in learning about, let me know, because that was the other thing that I want to try to bring up, is that Wrestling Line is here to not only preserve catch can wrestling, but we're also here to elevate your grappling. So we have a lot of online courses on our YouTube channel. On our website, but then our YouTube channel also has like tons of it's like a lot of topical videos where we break down a lot of techniques, but we also have a lot of matches. We have like some of the very best wrestling matches